can't scale a business if the CEO is involved in every new business pitch. Transitioning from founder-led sales to a team-driven approach is essential for sustainable growth. It's not just about delegating, it's about empowering your team, showcasing their expertise, and building trust with prospects. When a client sees a collaborative team approach, they feel confident they're hiring a company, not just a single leader. This shift not only frees up the CEO to focus on strategy and thought leadership, but creates a scalable sales process that drives long-term revenue success. That's a quote from Paul Wilson and a sneak peek at today's episode. Hi there, I'm Kerry Curran, business growth consultant, industry analyst, and host of Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast where we discuss smart strategies that drive revenue growth for all businesses. Founder-led growth is all the buzz today, but what do you do when it's time to scale? In this episode, Winning Every Stage, a sales framework for sustainable revenue success, I'm joined by sales expert Paul Wilson, who shares his proven framework for scaling revenue with a team-driven sales approach. We discuss how CEOs can transition from founder-led sales to a scalable process that empowers their teams to drive growth. Paul's actionable insights provide a roadmap for winning at every stage of the sales process. So whether you're a CEO, sales leader, or marketer, this episode is packed with strategies to drive sustainable revenue success. Let's go. So welcome, Paul. Please introduce yourself and tell us all about your background and expertise.
Thanks, Kerry. Great to be here today. Paul Wilson. I have a 20-year plus background in part of an executive team running sales and marketing. I prospect, joined 40 people, grew to 750 people, 4 million to 75 million through successful acquisition. Moved to RKG, small search marketing agency in Charlottesville, Virginia. Grew from 5 million to 30 million over 3 years and sold the company to Merkle. And started a consulting firm 5 years ago, helping CEOs of early stage digital agencies and software companies in growing revenue and really all aspects of growing an agency or software company. And I focus on teaching a process called Winning Every Stage of the sales process, which focuses on qualifying and having your ICP outline who's your ideal customer profile, how do you qualify, how do you go through a discovery process, how do you use your learnings into the presentation, and how do you close more revenue.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm excited to speak with you today. Fun fact for our listeners that Paul was my longtime boss and mentor. So taught me a lot of what I know and responsible for a lot of my success. So thank you, Paul. And great. So we're excited to have you on. So as you mentioned, you speak with a lot of CEOs today. What are you hearing from them? What are the business challenges they're talking about? Or, what do they need, whether they know it or not? What are they asking for?
Right. When I speak to CEOs, the first thing that I hear a number of times is, I've been leading sales, and how do I step out of it and still have the company grow and prosper when they're used to running every aspect? Now, when you're 5, 10, 15 people, maybe that works. You want to scale to 50 people, 100 people. You want to grow revenue from a few million to 15, 20, 50. Then you have to set up a process to scale. So they'll ask me, how do I do that? How do I put a go-to-market plan? And how do I take a step back and become more involved in the thought leadership, more involved in relationships with our biggest clients, et cetera, and let some of the sales, be handled by someone else. And what I also hear when I start to ask some questions around, what are the top 3 reasons you win a new client? What are the top 3 reasons you lose? a lot of the answers, the data isn't there. And
Hmm.
so I may start an engagement with that process and looking at what are the reasons you're winning? What are the reasons you're losing? I'll start with watching a current or recent sales pitch. It's what I love about Zoom and Teams is that you're taping a lot of presentations and you can actually stop them, and you find that a lot of times people are being pitched at and not it's not a conversation. You're not uncovering information. You're not asking open-ended questions to really find out what the client's needs are. So engagements, and what I hear the CEOs really, to answer your question, is how do they ask me, how do they take a step back from sales but still have confidence? And it's about putting a go-to-market plan together, hiring the right people, putting the right structure together, the right comp plan. And I generally, in my career, have hired practitioners who really know the nuts and bolts of the service, whether that be
Hmm.
paid search, paid media, SEO, email marketing, and allowing them to take time to learn the business side, the sales side of the relationship. And many of those that I've mentored over the years, like you, Kerry, have gone on to be very successful in your careers and moving up the ladder into senior management positions.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you. And I love what you were saying about the CEOs that you speak with are know they need to change, evolve, and kind of get out of the weeds. And it's interesting because I see so much of the trend, especially for startups, to be for founder-led growth, and that the founder has to be the face and the voice. So you're you're coming in and filling an important a niche at an important growth stage of how do you shift from that founder led growth to building that go to market team and strategy, and using all of that data. So I find it so interesting that you're really pulling that all together and helping them.
Yes, and I think an important first stage is there are times where I'll see a CEO pitching just himself, and I'll say bring in other team members, because on the client side, if I'm on the client side, I'm thinking, well, here's a CEO running a company. How are they going to have enough time to work on my account, to be there? I want to meet the people who are working on my account. So
Hmm.
I will work with the CEO on expanding the team. Even he's very involved, he or she, CEO, very involved.
Hmm.
However, they'll have maybe an account manager cover a case study, or have their
Yeah.
key strategist cover a real customized strategy for the client. Because clients or prospects, really at that stage, they don't want to hear about your agency or your software. They want to know what you're going to do for them. And they really
Right.
want that presentation to be customized from the learnings that you get in the discovery process. What are your top three criteria for hiring a new agency? What are your top three challenges with the current software you're using? And
Hmm.
really use that data to customize. But the team approach, I think two or three people presenting and really showing the breadth of your organization is a good first start. And
Yeah.
then slowly over time, that CEO taking a step back and two or three other people at the company leading that
Hmm.
process. And it gives clients and prospects at that time more confidence in your company, that they're seeing you have a team approach. They're not
Yeah.
hiring the CEO, they're hiring a company. And that's what they ultimately want to do.
Yeah, no, that's so important, and definitely a good strategy to kind of bring into the process. So you mentioned at your intro that you have a winning at every stage framework, and you've teased it out a little bit. Do you want to walk us through
Sure.
kind of what your stages are and where you kind of lean in to coach?
Sure. It really starts with the ICP, the ideal customer profile. What size company, what verticals, what challenges do those prospects have? And then outlining discovery questions to ask. I teach a process where you have a 30-minute discovery call once a lead comes in, and you're not pitching, you're not presenting anything. You're
Hmm.
asking a lot of questions, and you have those
Yeah.
questions outlined. You have a conversation with the prospect, you get all of that down, and then you utilize that to formulate your presentation. And the presentation, again, is about that prospect, not about you. Companies don't care how many employees you have or how many locations or all of those things.
Yep.
They want
Yep.
to know what's your strategy for them. And,
Yep.
starting out a presentation with, here are the 5 key things you told me are your biggest challenges. Get agreement on those. Here are your goals for the next year. Here's your average deal size you want to. Here's how many acquisitions you want to make of new clients, etc.
Yep.
And then starting, here's our strategy for you, for
Mm-hmm.
your specific business. And then when to ask open-ended questions and when to ask close-ended questions is a
Yep.
key. I'll see times where I'll be in a presentation, it'll be 27 minutes, and the agency hasn't asked the client one question. So I like asking questions every slide or every other slide. Once you
Mm-hmm.
go through a high-level review of the strategy, ask, how does this strategy compare to ones that you've utilized before? How
Yeah.
does this strategy compare to what you were expecting?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And ask open-ended, get the client speaking about, are you addressing their needs or not? And then as you get later in the presentation, move to the close-ended question. You
Yep.
told us your biggest challenges were you wanted someone who had technical acumen, someone who had experience in your vertical, someone who had a real seasoned team to work with. Now that we've covered those 3 areas, are you ready to move forward? And it
Mm-hmm.
may seem like a pushy sales approach, but
Yep.
it's not. You want to
Yeah.
know where you stand at the end of the meeting. And there are times I'll watch videos of clients of mine presenting at the end of the meeting. It's like, hey, great, we'll send you the deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I will teach teams, and I've taught first-time salespeople over the years in full-time positions, and also in the past 5 years consulting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when to ask the open-ended questions, when to ask the closed-ended questions, and how to move all the way through the sales process, the
Yeah.
negotiation, the SOW review, set up a
Mm-hmm.
meeting right away after the presentation, and really uncover the objections.
Yep.
Why or may you not be hired? What are the things you haven't offered that the client is looking for? And those types. But again, it's not a hardcore sales process. It's really a consultative. And when
Mm-hmm.
you have a sales team that's built from practitioners, then they're able to have that conversation. And it's always made me um, proud when someone has said, "Oh, I want that person in your team to manage my account," and
Yeah.
they're actually on the new business team, but they've
Yeah.
shown how consultative they are and how
Mm-hmm.
knowledgeable they are that the new client, actually wants them to work on the account.
This episode of Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast, is brought to you by Kriglu. Want to boost customer acquisition while saving time and money? Meet Kriglu, an AI-powered omni-channel bid management platform designed to optimize your ad spend. Kriglu intelligently adjusts bids across channels, ensuring your ads reach the right audience at the lowest cost. Plus, with its automation, you'll free up valuable time to focus on your business. The result? Efficient, cost-effective growth, all while maximizing your marketing budget. Ready to scale smarter and faster? Visit Kriglu.com, Kriglo.com, and start saving today. Yes, no, those are such great tips and the stages of your framework. And because I think one of the things we spoke about was that salespeople are often, a couple of things. One is, to your point on the discovery call, they're just can't wait to talk, and it's really hard for them to sit back and listen, but also to ask the tough questions, to understand, like things like you mentioned, top three criteria. We often ask, like, even just getting a better understanding of where are you in your discovery stage, like what's your timing of when you think you're going to move forward, when are you, or what are your other things of what you're not getting. I know we always ask, what are you not getting from your current
Yeah.
agency? And sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't, but it's, to your point, it's really listening and asking follow-up questions to get to the heart of what they really need, because they're not always, it's going to tell you out of the gate. So
Right.
I love that
Yeah.
that
And
part of
that
it.
process of winning every stage, it's really if someone doesn't fit your ICP, you have that 30-minute call, then it's not worth your time to pitch them if they
Yes,
don't.
yes,
If you
yes.
give a range of fees and, oh my gosh, that's 5 times what we're paying someone else, or you just don't get a good feel, then you're better off. You're winning the stage if you disqualify them,
Yeah.
because you're better. I was speaking with a CEO the other day, and he was saying, we want to have 40 qualified calls a month, and then pitch 30 of them and win 8 of them. And I
Yeah.
said, well, let's look at those ratios. Maybe we need to disqualify more
Hmm.
and really focus on, instead of winning 8, let's focus on winning 12 or
Yeah.
15, but let's not pitch as much.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's where, if you're qualifying in each part of the process, you're
Yeah.
disqualifying and you're
Hmm.
requalifying them all along the way at the end of the pitch, then you're spending your time on the most qualified and the most winnable
Yeah. Yeah.
prospects as well. And I've even worked with organizations on a scoring card of,
Hmm.
relationship, and you rate it 1 to 5, and strengthen your vertical. Is it a new vertical you haven't worked in, and
Right.
they're being pitched by others that have expertise there? So really going through that scorecard and determining, so that you're putting your most valuable people and your most valuable time on the most valuable opportunities to win.
Yeah, no, I think that's such an important part of the strategy, that, to your point, doesn't get enough focus, right? So it's, don't waste your time on the prospects that aren't the right fit. I mean, that goes back to your ICP and really trying to define and target an ICP that is going to align with your successful clients. But it's hard. There's also always especially the past few years, where a lot of companies were struggling to meet their revenue
Yes.
targets and goals. There, you get into this scramble of win at any cost, and that's just going to hurt you down the road. So
Oh,
there's a lot.
definitely. I've
Mhm.
seen times where, the challenge is like, oh, we need to win this, and it's unwinnable, and you're spending a lot of time on it. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that if you can, generate the right leads, and,
Hmm.
whether it's from networking, whether it's speaking at conferences, whether it's
Yep.
speaking webinars internally that you
Hmm.
run, um, however you're generating those leads, and then really focusing on the most qualified ones that you have the best
Yep.
opportunity to win.
Yeah.
Um, and then another area I'd love to mention, Kerry, is, when you finally close a deal and onboard. And I was actually on a onboarding call, a kickoff with a client yesterday that I helped one of my clients with. Um, is setting up, how are you going to get feedback from
Yep.
those clients, and making sure you're meeting their needs on a regular basis. And in over
Hmm.
20 years, the past 20 years, I've been involved and launched Net Promoter Score
Hmm.
programs in full-time positions. And I've run 5 or 6 of them for consulting clients, where we're having a quarterly call. I ask 4 questions of them. I will run through, are we helping you meet your revenue goals? What else can we be doing to help you? Which uncovers new areas. Maybe it's an
Hmm.
upsell opportunity as well for you, or expanding your
Yeah.
existing service. Would you recommend us to an industry friend or peer? And how would you rate us on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the
Yeah.
best for revenue results? But secondly, how would you rate your experience working with our team? And it's a 15-minute call. I've charted these over 3, 4 years for clients, quarter to
Yeah.
quarter, client to client. You have contact names change. And so you're
Hmm.
meeting new people at the client, and you're continually making sure you're delivering upon their
Yeah.
needs. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, whether it's an agency, software company, they'll win a client, they get started, they're like, fantastic, we got our year-long contract, but they're not checking in every 3 months to make sure.
Hmm.
And when I conduct these as an objective third party, and I'll
Yeah.
introduce myself to them as a third party, I introduce my background, and I'll share with them after this call. I'm going to type up the notes and share them in an email with the leadership team. And
Yeah.
then, sometimes there are things to fix right away. And sometimes I'll speak with you in 3 months and the numbers are strong. But if
Yeah.
you chart that as a company each quarter and what's your
Hmm.
average rate, and you want to make improvements quarter to quarter in aggregate over your clients, you'd be amazed at how your client retention rate can continually improve year
Hmm.
over year. And then you're not chasing to get new clients all the time. And it's imperative that you get a new client every month or multiple new clients because you're keeping your client base.
Yeah. No, I love it's so smart, Paul, and I love that you've made that part of your consulting service because to your point, it's such a critical aspect for growth. We always hear that it costs more to win a new client than to retain
Yes.
an existing client. But, I've from what I've seen and heard in the agencies that I've worked with in, people are so leadership's very afraid of getting negative feedback, so instead they just don't ask, or they're and then they're surprised when they hear that their client's not renewing, or there's
Right.
not a trust or a relationship developed where the clients are given the opportunity to give objective feedback. So it's such an important part of the
Yes.
overarching strategy.
Yeah, it sure is. And, I had one client the other day that when I was reviewing, my calls coming up, and they said, "Oh, you can let that one go. We just had a new account manager on the account 3 weeks ago. Why don't you just put them
Yeah.
off for another 3 months?" And I said, that's not a wise idea, because if
Yeah.
they've been working 3 weeks already, we want to find out, how is it going now? And is
Right.
it
Right.
going better? And are they getting
Hmm.
more strategy? And are their specific needs being addressed? You want
Yeah.
to know that. And that's
Yeah.
where I continually will say we have to stick with the 3 months or
Hmm.
so to make sure we're hearing that client's feedback, because if it's negative, we want to know and make corrections.
Yeah. No, it's so smart. And then you're also getting quotes or other insights that can help, to your point, whether it's upselling services, but there's also, I'm sure, content coming out of those conversations that become helpful in the marketing and sales kind of promotion of the agency as well.
Yes. No, agree with that. So it's really the full, cycle from, not only, building your brand, generating leads, winning every stage of the sales process, it's keeping those clients
Yeah.
year after year after year.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing too as the more like modern go-to-market strategy. That is marketing, sales, plus customer success, all working together towards the revenue growth for the organization. So it's
Yes.
you've got it all in your winning at every stage. So I really appreciate your framework.
Well, thank you. No, it's great to
Excellent.
be here. I love working with CEOs and teams, whether it's sales training, training new salespeople, go to market plans, lead generation, all the way through to that net promoter score and keeping clients.
Excellent. Thanks, Paula. So what is your like top recommendation for a CEO that needs that to get out of the position of, being the sales lead, the founder led sales? What's your kind of the number one first thing they should do?
I think the number one is do an analysis, and I love helping companies with this, of that one loss. Why are you winning? Why are you
Hmm.
losing? Why are clients leaving? Current
Hmm.
clients, why are they leaving? And doing that assessment first. And then, secondly, moving towards team selling, because you
Yeah.
can't go from 100% focused and involved in sales to now I'm not doing sales anymore. Someone else go do it. It
Yeah.
has to be a transition, and it has
Hmm.
to be building out the team first. And you'll be amazed at how many people at your company enjoy presenting, enjoy
Yeah.
pitching, and
Hmm.
allow people. I've always hired from within first, because there are times where team members will say, "Hey, I loved presenting to that client the other day. I'd love to be involved in it more." You oftentimes can build your own team internally and
Hmm.
then start to delegate. And there are
Yeah.
times where a CEO that I work with that went through this transition purposely said, "Okay, now I've been on a couple pitches with you. This next pitch, I'm not going to," and
Hmm.
gave it to three
Hmm.
people and said, "You're going to put this entire pitch together and deliver it." And sometimes that's what you have to do to slowly
Yeah.
move out of that process. And again, you have to grow. You want the revenue to be there, but you can never scale if you have to be in every new business pitch.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's very valuable advice. I definitely agree. So thank you so much, Paul. So how can people listening today, how can they find you?
One, you can find me on LinkedIn, uh, Paul M. Wilson Consulting, LLC. I am, after 5 years consulting, I've helped four of my clients have sold to PE firms at above average multiples in the past 2.5 years. So I'm very proud of that. And I'll be launching company under the URL massivegrowthpartners.com, and we'll be looking at building out the services that I offer companies as well. So you can find me a number of ways.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Be sure to put that all in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for your time today and everything. Recognizing a lot of the great advice and frameworks that you've coached me through back in our days working together. So it was successful then, and glad to see it continues to be successful today.
Great. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Really enjoyed the time, and best wishes for 2025.
Excellent. You as well. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
I hope you found this episode of Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast, as valuable as I did. Paul's winning at every stage framework is critical for all brands that need to drive more growth. If you found this helpful, please be sure to subscribe to Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast, for more useful episodes. Connect with me, Kerry Curran, on LinkedIn or at revenuebasedmarketing.com for previous episodes and to learn how I can boost your 2025 revenue.